I first met this instructor, Dr. Felecia Nace, at the Super Happy Fun America Straight Pride Parade. It was at a rally right after the parade, and I heard her speak, and I said, I got to get to know this lady. She knows what she's talking about. And I did speak to her, and we had her on a speaking tour up in Boston, I think right before the lockdown, right about January of 2020. And I think that was your first year at camp too, in that year. And you've been coming back, not every year, but almost every year with your lovely young daughter. And so she's, Dr. Felecia Nace has authored several books. And I actually wrote the foreword to one of them, the more recent book. Oh, you have one coming out too. So let's give her, Dr. Nace, a nice warm hand.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this morning we're going to talk about going global. I'm sure some of you have heard that term, and I just caution that before we go global, we've got a lot of homework to do right here at home. I mean, we need to get our homegrown individuals up to par. And so if you look at our latest test scores, we have about 30% of our young people, fourth graders and eighth graders, who can read on grade level. That's horrible. About 30% of our eighth graders and fourth graders are reading on grade level, can do what they're measured on, simple math. And so for us to be one of the most powerful countries in the world, that's a sad state of affairs for us. But yet we keep hearing the term, go global. Well, can we get our kids to at least be able to spell the word global, to understand what global means? Can the average fourth grader spell the word international these days? So that's the stuff we need to be working on, the basic skills in this country. And so with that, we're going to begin this presentation. So Alex Newman did a wonderful job of giving us the background on the UN's interference in our educational system, right? We have a lot of things filtering down from the United Nations. It's not just, we're wondering, where's all this coming from? Where's this, equity and LGBTQ++? Where's all this coming from all of a sudden? Well, it's a global plan to bring all nations under this umbrella, right? And there are certain buzzwords too that we hear over and over again that are also filtering down from the UN. So we'll get into a little bit of that as well. So since he gave you the background, I won't go into that. I won't repeat that because I thought it was perfect, right? So why reinvent the wheel? What I will do, however, is give you a lesson on lessons. How is all of this rolling out in the classroom? I used to be a teacher. I was a teacher for over a decade. I taught 4th and 5th grade. I taught mathematics and science. So mathematics, science, and reading, as a matter of fact, because back then you could become certified K through 8 in a variety of topics, variety of subjects, right? And so I was able to teach a variety of subjects. There we go, a lesson in lessons. I am going to condense what could be a 1 week or 2 week lesson into 5 minutes, okay? Let's see how well I can do this. So here's the introduction. We have rare minerals that are found in the Earth's crust, and there are 17 of these elements that we don't normally hear about because they are rare. But I want to focus on 2 of these elements. And those 2 elements are terbium and erbium. Okay, when these 2 elements combine, there we go. Okay, let's see. Yeah, when these 2 elements combine, terbium and erbium, they create something very special, and they affect our rain. And I'll demonstrate to you exactly how that is done. So when terbium and erbium, when they come up through the Earth's surface and they're absorbed in the clouds, we get something that is called purple rain. Okay, scientists have this special, it's almost like a telescope. And this information is new. They've just discovered it. It's almost like a telescope. So actually when the rain is just coming out of the clouds, it has a purple hue. However, when we see it, when it hits Earth and we see it, we don't see the purple hue. Why? Because the octave nerve, when the terbium and erbium interface with the octave nerve, we see clear rain. We don't see the true color of rain, okay? And that is what's happening to our children in education. That is a completely made up lesson based on zero science. Absolutely no science at all. This is what's happening in our K through 12 classrooms, as well as in our colleges and universities around the country. We have lessons in LGBTQ++ in our curriculums based on what kind of science? Zero. Based on zero science. But it's taught to our children as though it is truth. And there is a major problem with that. So it's no secret that our children are not up to standard. What do we want to blame that on? COVID-19. Our children have been falling short way before COVID-19 happened. And why did they really fall off the cliff during COVID-19? Because they were not shored up. Learning happens every second of every day. And we've got to get out of this box that learning only happens in the classroom. It only happens during instruction. Okay, it's happening all the time, or should be happening all the time, so that if there's ever any kind of emergency, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know, like in Texas, if a flood might hit the area and the schools are closed. Whatever happens, our children should be shored up enough to survive a year and not fall over a cliff and not be able to recoup. And that's where we are right now. So I think that the biggest lesson for me as an educator, that was the biggest lesson that came out of all of this, was that we're not shoring our children up enough. If they're 10 public school, okay. But as parents, we still have a responsibility to make sure our kids are learning all the time. And that they're not dependent on being spoon-fed information, because that's what I just fed you. I spoon-fed you my own brand of information. Okay, so agenda-driven education versus authentic education is where we are. This is the crossroads where we are right now. And we hear a lot about, last year I talked, for some of you who weren't here, I talked about AI, which is artificial intelligence, versus authentic intelligence. We talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and that is that lesson I just provided you, right? That's artificial intelligence. We need our kids to concentrate and be focused on authentic learning and authentic intelligence, and that's not where we are in this country anymore. Okay, it's all about, whatever the agenda is of the day, let's create some vocabulary, like I did, okay? Let's give them some factual information, let's make it look good, right? And then let's present it as though it is fact. And when your teacher says something to you, you believe them. And you know how many fourth graders would have run home and said, Mommy, Daddy, guess what? The rain is really purple. Yeah, the rain is really purple. So that's what's going on. So let's look at some of the buzzwords that we see coming out of the UN. Take a look at this. Anybody want to volunteer? What are some of the usual buzzwords that we see here? Volunteer from some of the young people. Yes?
Sustainable.
Sustainable. What does that even mean anymore? That's right, sustainable. The minute we have conditioned our young people so that when they hear the word sustainable, they're immediately on board. Doesn't matter what the lesson is, doesn't matter what they're being taught, they are immediately on board. When they hear sustainable, diversity, inequalities. Oh my. You know, is there ever going to be a kumbaya moment, right, in human history where we're all on the same page?
Not so.
Is there ever supposed to be? That moment's not ever going to exist. That's a falsehood.
Right.
There are always going to be inequalities. Someone can run faster than someone else. Someone has more money than someone else. Maybe they worked harder. Okay, maybe they were just blessed with that money somehow. There are always going to be those inequalities. So, you know, we're just being sold falsehoods. That one day, if we just keep going along this path, everyone's going to be equal. Not so.
Not so.
Yeah. Okay. More of the same. Agenda-driven education continued. And so, what are some of the buzzwords we see here? Human rights. Look at the first line, we have human rights. Third line, sexual orientation, gender identity. You skip down, you see the word inclusion, all the usual suspects. Democratic process. And so what is all the sexual orientation and gender identity about? I would love for one of the young people to give me your theory on that. It's really very simple. They don't want American children in particular to reproduce. No more homegrown individuals. It's about destroying the family. It's about limiting the amount of homegrown individuals who were born here. It's about changing the face of America. Yeah, it's not about human rights and all this other stuff that they keep telling us. It's about controlling our population.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go back. How successful is this global agenda? Have you guys heard of this? This recently happened, a gay pride at Lawrence Intermediate School in New Jersey for 4th and through 6th graders. So I taught 4th and 5th grade. So these children are between the ages of 9, 10, to the ages of 12 to 13. Okay, and they're marching around the school. This is in school, this happened. So the school decided it would be a great idea if they allowed these children to have a gay parade. Let's take a look. So it's coming up on my screen. Do I have a techie here? Techie. Oh, he just left, the techie left the building. Okay, so there is a short clip. It's on Facebook, and if you type that into your phone, you're able to see it on your own if you'd like. And here these kids are. They're parading around in all the rainbow colors. We know that the rainbow was stolen from the church.
Right.
It is still the promise of God. That's the truth. And here these kids are, all the rainbow colors, marching around the school, waving the flags, having a grand time. And they literally march in the street around the building. So the school was so ashamed of it, however. This was the only, one of the only clips left that was online, because they had boasted about it and they had a bunch of clips online. However, a lot of those have been removed. So much for pride.
Yeah, it says this page is unavailable.
Is it unavailable? I'm actually looking at the clip here. No? Okay. Well, you guys, there is the information if you'd like to check it out. And I'm going to try to get back to my page. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to move forward without that. So how effective is their agenda? That is one side of the story. However, God said that we walk by faith and not by site. Okay? And so on the flip side of that, there was this new Utah law that passed in March of 2025 that prohibits the display of flags other than a select few, such as the United States flag, the state flag, the military flag, and certain others. And that's according to Newsweek. So there is hope on the flip side of, all this bizarre stuff that's happening with our children in our schools. And, hooray for Utah for doing that. And hopefully other states will see the danger in these flags. So I'd like to tell you a story. I was at the Phoenix Botanical Garden, because I used to live in Scottsdale. I moved there during 2020, during COVID, because they had less of a lockdown, and was there for a couple years. So in 2021, one night, it gets really hot in that Phoenix area. And so one night I decided I'm going to go to the Botanical Gardens, because they were having a special event with the local Indians in the area. They were doing the Indian dances and talking about the culture, etc. So I go, and it's June, and I pull into the parking lot, and what do I see? The American flag raised high, right next to it, raised at the exact level, is the LGBT flag. Okay? So I immediately asked for the manager, and I said, you have a lot of kids. It was a kids' night. It was a family night. You have all these kids, coming in to the Botanical Garden to see this Indian event roll out. And I said, you have a lot of children coming in here. Why do you feel the need to raise the LGBT flag? All these parents have to now explain to these kids, what kind of flag is that? And then, there it is. They have to have they're forced to have these conversations. So he said, well, it's, we celebrate the month. This month is LGBT month. Okay. So then I go and I wrote on Yelp and Google. I wrote a review, and I just just said, listen, we don't need these flags in places like this where there are going to be a lot of kids and families. Doesn't make sense. Yelp and Google, within 24 hours, took down my review. Okay? Yeah, took it down. Couldn't fight to get it put back up either, because there was no recourse. Anything that goes against this agenda, you don't have a chance. Okay? But we have to keep fighting, and we have to keep saying something. I likely was the only one. I didn't have a child. I didn't even have a child, but I thought this was just so ridiculous. And what I said was, we all fly under the same flag. We've had so many people die and fight for all of our freedoms. Doesn't matter what you look like, whatever. If you're handicapped, if you're purple, if you're brown, if whatever, you are covered under that flag. And I think if enough of us are persistent in that message wherever we go, then I think we can make a change. And Utah, thank God for Utah, because they're the first to step up and say, we're not flying this flag. We're not flying. It's a sexual flag. It has no place here. I'm sorry. Can you speak up, please? I'd love to have interaction.
We have a couple folks, I think, here from Utah.
Oh, really? Who's here from Utah? Yay! Awesome. All right. So when we have the discussion part of this, I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Okay? Thank you. All right. So what do global agendas look like? They are masterful at twisting language. The three big ones: DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Boy, those words, they put a nasty taste in your mouth these days. And they're good words. They normally, under normal circumstances, they're just ordinary words that used to have a wholesome meaning. Not anymore, though. And then we have well-funded, we have people who, like Antifa, who are well-funded, and they go after people like you and I who try to have a voice, who speak up. Is there any young person who is just okay with technology? Because I would like to get back on board. I have a picture I would like to share with the audience.
I'll give it a try.
Okay, thank you. And so, I just want to get back to the PowerPoint presentation. So, how many of you have ever seen Antifa in person? Anyone? And what was your, and can you stand up and tell me what your interaction was with Antifa?
Yes, I'm a writer for the New American, and I went to a college campus, and I interviewed a young lady who was at the University of North Texas,
Okay.
and I got a chance to talk to her about what they believe.
That's it,
And I because she talked about Black Lives Matter. I said, well, don't all lives matter? But they've got this thing where they say this is more important and stuff like that. Is that what you're looking for?
Absolutely.
I tried to get into her thought process a little bit when I interviewed her for the New American.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that.
Where is your photo? Where is your photo?
So when I was at the Straight Pride Parade in Boston back in 2019, Antifa showed up. And what I recognized about Antifa, somehow I got away from the group. We were very well protected, and I'll show you the police protection that we had. It was ridiculous. We had so many police that they had police come from neighboring towns to protect us. Now, when they have gay pride parades, you never see that type of police presence. These police had, they looked like the gauntlet. They had, thank you so much. Yeah, they had riot gear.
It's the same.
There we go, right there. Here's a good picture. So they have riot gear, as you can see on the right. These are just a few of the police presence that we had that day. These guys lined the streets with literally with riot gear on. They were standing shoulder to shoulder to protect us. And somehow, because of all the confusion, I got outside of the group and I ended up face to face with Antifa. I took that picture. I was just amazed that they even existed. I was naive. I had read about Antifa. I didn't think it was real. And then there I was faced with it. And that's just one sign that I saw. Most of the signs, I think they have some type of meeting, like, pre-meeting or something before they come out. And they all have the same signs. You know what the sign said? Most of the signs said white supremacists and Nazi go home. And I was like, wow, I don't know. So they didn't do their homework to even find out what the lineup was that day, like who would be speaking. They just came out with these, these signs that had already been prepared. And that's their messaging, is just white supremacists, Nazi, and that kind of thing. But this was them. I came face to face with them, and I was looking to see if they were on drugs because they saw my tag. I had forgotten to take my tag off, and they saw my tag, so they start circling me like a shark. They just start circling me, like that. I felt very uneasy, but what I didn't feel like these young people were on drugs. I felt like they were somehow hypnotized, if that makes sense. Like they had been so brainwashed that they really believed that this was a mission, to go after people like me. So that's what we're dealing with right now today, even still in 2025. So I just wanted to share that with you. And they have to be well-funded. Well-funded, someone's leading the cause, and they have the same messaging, every single one of them. So I came across, as I was preparing for this talk, I came across Alex Newman's article in the Sentinel. He writes the Liberty Sentinel and produces it online. And so this article popped up, and I said I have to use it because I'm in the middle of preparing this talk, and suddenly here this great article is. And I just wanted to use a couple of excerpts from it. He says in the article, among other demands on education, this is the UN's involvement in our educational system. The United States needs more, they say that we need more federal involvement and oversight of government and private schools, not less. And this is in response to Donald Trump's, his mission to dismantle the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education. And I have to say this, I worked for the New Jersey Department of Education, which is at the state level, and I can tell you how much we added to education in the state of New Jersey. Zero. I have to admit that. I worked with them for 13 years, and that's what we added. Why? Because I felt like I was a foot soldier for our federal government. That's what your state DOEs are, essentially. Whatever initiative comes out of the federal government, we were to carry it out. And we were to go into the schools and act as foot soldiers and say, okay, you didn't do X, Y, and Z, and so you may have a financial penalty because of that. That was essentially our jobs. It wasn't to help the school districts grow. Our jobs was to go out and be those foot soldiers. So as the federal DOE crumbles, which thank God for Donald Trump doing that and making that one of his top priorities, as they crumble, we also need to start looking at our state DOEs, because a lot of state dollars are going into the State Department of Education. And we have to ask ourselves, where's our state money going? Where are these state taxes going? You know, are we seeing massive improvements in student data? No, we're not. And the funny thing is Chicago, well, Illinois, the state of Illinois, you have a lot of parents, in particular in Chicago, who are saying, you know what, they're finally waking up. And they're saying, we're pulling our kids out of school and we're going to sacrifice and make sure that they are homeschooled and that they get some learning, some real authentic education. And so what was the state's response to that? To say, well, now there's a bill on the table where they want to pass legislation so that there's oversight from the Board of Education and the State Department of Education. And if that bill passes, woe is us, right? And what the parents are pushing back saying is, you couldn't provide oversight when my kids were in public school. Now you want to come out to my home as I homeschool them to give oversight? Are you kidding? But they do not want to let go, you know, of that power, because as we know, education, knowledge is power. And what they pour into our kids are going to be those foot soldiers, right, for the government to go out and roll out their agendas. So bravo to Illinois as well for those parents finally waking up, especially in Chicago, saying, our kids are failing, we can't do any worse, you know, let's try homeschooling. I know I only have like 3 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap it up. Where do we go from here? We reclaim international studies. We can go global, but first we need to, like I started out saying, first we need to make sure that our children are shored up, that there's learning happening every day, that their learning is not dependent upon schooling. Because as we know, the schools, they're just basically creating something from nothing and teaching it to our children. So we have to ensure that learning is happening every second of the day. Okay? Whether it's with little children and they're looking at a house and you're saying, hey, there's some geometric shapes there. What are they? Can you identify them? Okay? Learning is happening all the time. And that way, we don't go over a cliff. Emergencies are always going to happen in our society. What happens when the school shuts down? Learning should continue. It keeps moving. It should flow like a river. So, let's see, a few more points and then I'll be done. Let's go back. Next, that leads right into parents taking control of learning, creating lifelong learners, supporting our good churches. We know that we have churches that have just gone off the track. They're on the crazy train. They've just gone off the track. But the good churches are having a really difficult time surviving, and they're struggling. And I think, once we seek them out, that we could provide either financial support or start attending some of those churches and just letting them know that we're there as a community to support them. And that's the anti-UN tactic. I think that's the biggest thing we can do, is to, when we talk about sustainable, right? To sustain our good churches. Because as our church goes, everything else goes. And I think I will end on that point. You can read the last one for yourselves. Work alongside elected officials who push back against globalist agendas. They can't do it alone. Trump is not the savior. He's not our savior. God is our savior. And we are the hands of God. We have to also do our parts.